Hello, welcome to American Gypsy Podcast. I am your host, Gypsy, and today we have a special guest, Harvey Wizard. He's a serial entrepreneur, best-selling author, philanthropist, and now a candidate for the 2024 presidency. Welcome to the show, Harvey.
Thank you.
So before we get started, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, I am running for president, and that actually started as a lark a few months ago. When I found out how easy it was to do, actually, I was able to do it in 20 minutes from uh, from my home here in Costa Rica, and I was able to register with the Federal Election Commission, create the Harvey Wizard for President bank account, and get everything tied up in 20 minutes on a Saturday. And then I was like, oh, that was fun. And now what can I do with this? I frequently, find things part of an entrepreneurship thing that you start with a possibility or an idea, and then you figure out, well, how can I turn this into something? Um, and and then I realized it kind of segues into the things that I do anyway, because basically I do coaching. I coach uh, students how to get near perfect SAT scores, full ride merit scholarships, and get into Ivy League schools if they want to do that. And then I also, um, coach people in terms of their businesses or in terms of whatever they're trying to accomplish in their life that they need some help accomplishing. And I figured, well, isn't that what a president should be? And so I realized I can start off with, yes, I'm running for president, but rather than me making promises that I'll break later, why don't we start by me helping you right now? So I see it as a pretty cool mission. The idea that the world is kind of going to pot, and as a boomer, I suppose I'm I'm uh, I'm responsible for that, so I should try to make things better. So, and then when I realized I'm probably more qualified, in certain respects, more qualified than the other people running. I'm smarter. I have 169 IQ. I've built multiple businesses from zero. So I have people management skills. I have out of the box thinking skills. I built a series of multi-million-dollar businesses, and I'm really good at problem solving. And I'm not, right now I'm not taking money from anybody. So it allows me to be brutally honest. And that's my platform. Jobs for all, scholarships for all, brutal honesty for all. Because anybody who wants to get involved in the campaign, I mean, I've got a series of companies. Anybody who wants a virtual job, I can hire anybody who wants to get hired. Part of what they're going to have to do is learn how to sell because see, and that's an interesting thing. Anybody who has money problems, and this is a good presidential message, if you are comfortable selling what you can do or what somebody else can do, you'll never have a money problem, understanding economics. So it's really a mission to uh, make people actually get more out of their life, get more success, and prove myself worthy of being president by the time I am. I also have a long plan for it. You see, looking back at independent candidates over the years, for instance, I did did a little research. And you take someone like Jill Stein, who she's run multiple times. Every time she gets 2% of the vote, right?
Yeah.
After raising millions of dollars, she gets 2% of the vote. And then 4 years later, it's like she starts again. And I'm like, well, this doesn't make any sense. From a business standpoint, I mean, like right now, I have a list of like over 30,000 people, my email list because of the various companies I've started. And I was like, well, if that list was 150 million and everybody just went and wrote in Harvey Wizard, you could win and you could actually avoid all of the political landmines. Part of the understanding is it could take me 12 years, right? But that's fine because nobody's spending the money. I'm just putting myself out there, building my list. And once it gets big enough, you kind of already know you're going to win because you've got the people right there as opposed to spending money on uh, TV and radio ads where they suck up the money. People either heard it or they don't, and then 4 years later they've forgotten, and then you have to spend millions of dollars again. So
Yeah.
that's my plan for winning the presidency and making America a better place.
Okay. I like your slogan, jobs for all, scholarships for all, and brutal honesty, which is something we're lacking in the government. But what do you feel like we can do to get closer to that? We can even start with jobs for all. Like, how do we um, get closer to that? What do we need to work on?
Sure, I think especially in the new economy, there are niches and sub niches, and I think fundamentally, um, to the degree that people become responsible for their own little businesses, it actually is going to give anybody more freedom and more more money and more satisfaction. When I get to the thing about sales, when I say jobs for all and it's the idea of selling, here's an interesting thing for people to think about. Any job you're in, any job, right? If you're getting paid, let's say you're getting paid $100,000. If you're getting paid $100,000, that means you've got to be delivering significantly more value than that to the company, right? In other
Yeah,
words, people have had to come into that company and pay them a lot more money than 100,000 for them to pay you.
yeah,
Now, here's the interesting thing. Whatever they're paying the company is a lot more than you're getting. And why is that? Because you have made the choice to work for somebody else because you're basically too afraid to just sell yourself or sell whatever your service is. And it's not true for everybody. I mean, you have to get to a point where you actually have a service or a product that people want to buy. But if you do, the idea of a job just means it's a way of what I'm really saying jobs for all is make your own job, like teaching people how to make their own jobs.
mhm,
Interestingly, even for let's say you're a single mom, you're unemployed, right? You,
yeah,
you just lost your job. Oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? And here's just an idea, and it takes a little bit of grit, but it's an interesting idea is that almost everybody knows how to clean a house, right? Or because they clean their own house. So as just an example, if you were to um, start a cleaning business, or just like, hey, right? You
yeah,
clean the houses first. Remember, you're unemployed. You were getting nothing.
yeah,
Now you're actually making money. And if you do it well, you should get to a point where you're going to have more work than you can handle. And that's how you start hiring people, training them to do what you already know how to do. And now next thing you know, you have a business. That's the reason I started there is it's kind of a business that pretty much anybody can do. Right? You may not want to do it, but you can do it. I actually had a student who made $20,000 over the summer. He started a business because his family had a home on Martha's Vineyard, and it was just he made 20,000 cleaning people's barbecue grills
mm,
over the summer because there's
that's
a
a
lot of wealthy
lot.
people,
Yeah,
and they like to barbecue, but they don't like to. It's a key to clean the grills, and he would go and do and just had this big business. I mean, for a 17-year-old, make 20 grand in the summer, for cleaning grills. So it's sometimes it's that, and then if you have more high value skills, it's a matter of figuring out where you need to uh who you need to approach to offer those skills, and and learning how to sell, and then delivering. So if you think what people do in their own jobs, if they just added selling as part of that, then they'd be making a lot more money. They wouldn't have to. There's a lot of freedom. That is the entrepreneur mindset. But then again, it
Yeah.
may be appropriate on your podcast because it's appealing to entrepreneurs. There's some people who I know that they maybe just don't don't want to deal with the idea of, oh my God, I have to make my own money. But you do anyway. You see, that's the funny
Yeah.
thing people don't realize, because it's just a little different. Instead of you selling the individual clients, making a lot more money, you still have to go in and sell the next employer.
Yeah.
So you're doing it anyway. You see,
Right.
you're selling yourself that one time to the employer. If you just got comfortable with that and sold to do whatever it is you do for other people without having the company and their salesperson in the middle, you suddenly, are completely free.
Right.
And or even the idea or even having side hustles and things like that. Again, the same idea of selling. Uh, for instance, all of my programs I have affiliate payouts for all of my programs, right? And so that means that if when somebody comes to me, I give them a special link, and if they put that on their Instagram, if they give it to their friends. I mean, even with my tutoring, if a parent suggests my tutoring program to another parent and they buy, they get a 10% commission, right? So, and the truth is, there's affiliate programs all over the internet. That was how I became an internet multimillionaire initially, um, by becoming a ClickBank affiliate, and then I figured out how to, just run it on my own. But it's it's amazing that there are these opportunities that people don't realize that are right there, that are actually you can do right from home from your computer and make money.
Yeah. I think some people feel like doing that is a little bit more riskier, but I mean, same as a job, you could technically lose your job. So,
Exactly, right. That's the point, that they see it as a risk, but what you're basically doing is saying, um, I don't have the guts to sell. I want you to do that for me, so I'm happy making less money. I don't know how many people would actually make that statement if they realized that's what they were effectively doing.
so can you talk a little bit about like what were you doing? I know you mentioned you did sorry, affiliate marketing. What are some of the businesses and did you start early on or is it something you
Oh,
did
I've had it
after
right.
college?
Okay. No, no, no. I had my first business when I was 11, so we can talk
Mm,
about that.
okay.
Um, I I wanted to get a camera and a dark room. I wasn't even thinking of it in terms of a business right then. I was interested in photography, and I liked the idea of having a camera. And there was a room in our basement where I could put a dark room. And this is in the old days, right? When there was, when you actually had the feel of the paper and the film and everything. And
Yeah, I've
yeah.
done
So
that
it was kind of fun.
actually.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, my mother said, "Well, you have to work. You have to work to earn it." And I was thinking, what could I do? And around that time, I was watching an episode of 60 Minutes. It was like in the early 70s. And it was talking about a woman who had won like hundreds of contests. And the way she won, and she was explaining how you win the contest. And again, the principle is the same. The mechanics are a little different because this was in the mail your entry in age. Okay.
Mm,
So the basic idea she was explaining was that you you find out um, anything you can do to make your entry stand out. Maybe you bend the corners of the envelope you're sending it in. You put the stamp in the wrong place. You use special colored markers. You just do things so that your entry becomes the standout, which is fundamentally what you want to do with anything you're trying to sell or win, right? You want to stand out. You want to differentiate yourself. You want to be the one that draws the attention. And with that basic idea, there was a coloring contest in the Sunday paper called the Cappy Dick Contest, where if you won it, you'd get a set of World Book encyclopedias, which is worth like a few $100s. And so this particular week, it was a strange thing to color. It was a nighttime fire. Um, it was like they were having a bonfire, and so all the people's faces that you couldn't see that much were in shadow, and then there were fireflies, like little white dots that you would color in yellow. But so there wasn't that much to color is the point. So I'm thinking, well, how are they going to choose a winner? Right? There's like everybody's just going to look pretty much the same because there just wasn't too much to color. And then and based on 60 Minutes, um I made this character out of colored paper called Fred the Firefly. It's like a cartoon character about this big. I pasted the entry on his stomach, folded it over, put it in a big envelope, put all stuff on it, and sent it in. And then 30 days later or so, I hear a scream in the living room. It's my mother just, Harvey, what did you do? You won this national contest. So I I won the World Book Encyclopedias. We already had a set, so I sold my set and used that money to buy the camera in the dark room. And then, because local phone calls were free, I literally just started cold calling from the phone book, looking for a household that had kids in it. And then if they had kids, I offered to come and take uh, candid photos for free, and then they would just buy whatever photos they wanted. That was my
Oh,
first business. Yeah, at 11. Um, so I graduated high school a year early. I did 3 years of high school work in 4 years and graduated as the valedictorian of the class ahead of me. I do have this 169 IQ, which that's why I'm smarter than everybody else running. But anyway, I went to Dartmouth. I majored in philosophy, and I got disillusioned while I was there, and I decided to become a musician. And uh, so then I actually got my first job singing at this uh, at this bar called the Copper Door. And I I basically learned how to play two songs on guitar for the audition, and then I got the job. But that meant that in a week I had to play for 5 hours on Friday and Saturday night. I because I didn't know what I was doing. I negotiated the worst possible conditions. I was gonna sing for like an I was gonna get take a 5 minute break every hour or something. Something crazy. Uh, but I did it, and I mean, my fingers were almost bleeding, but I learned these 30 songs, and then I just repeated 30 songs, like every couple hours. Um, and so I'm making money, and then I was going to a foreign study program in Edinburgh, Scotland. And when we talk about, so I saw this theater, and I just walked into the theater, and with my guitar, asked for the manager, and asked if they could use some entertainment. As it turned out, what I had walked into was the famous Empire Theater in Edinburgh. I mean, Laurel and Hardy had performed there. All of these like giants had performed there, and it had been renovated as this full, beautiful theater for people to play bingo. And I got hired to play 20 minutes as they switched in between the bingo games. But I was playing on a stage to like a couple thousand people a night. It was like
wow.
$20 for 20 minutes. And then I leveraged that because there were other I was like playing 3 bingo halls a week. Then I was playing in a restaurant. And that was while I was supposed to be in a foreign study program. So yeah, I've always seen, ways to make money. Then after I graduated from Dartmouth, I had a job working in an ad agency, but in the weekends, I worked as a street musician.
Mm,
And eventually in New York City, I was making $150 an hour as a street musician.
nice.
And I did that for about 3 years. And because I did it just at the times when they were selling half price tickets in Times Square. There's a place called Duffy Square. They sell half price tickets. At the time, people would line up for hours and hours, and they're stuck there. So I would just bring my case. I'd have a mouse amp in front of me and one up on the bus shelter so I could be heard in this whole island. And then I even created collapsible boxes to stand near either side of the line so people wouldn't have to get out of line to give me money. They could just throw it in the box as they pass by. So between all those things, right, so that was, that was the business. Then I started a personalized songwriting business where we would write a complete original song and record it to give as a gift to somebody who had everything. Uh, and I basically built that by advertising in the back of city magazines. Again, New York Magazine had a lot of these kind of weird gifts, but it was very expensive to advertise, and it was a weekly magazine, so it's hard to make money. Then I discovered that all the other cities had similar sections, but they were monthlies, like Boston Magazine, St. Louis Magazine. I don't know if these magazines still exist. This is, years ago when people read magazines, but St. Louis Magazine, Boston, Denver, and so then it was working. I mean, people would see the ad, they would call us, we'd write the song. Uh, they would send us a check. I mean, I don't even think we took credit cards, um, at the time. And then, um, when my daughter was born, and I was like, okay, now we have to make some real money, or a real business. And my ex-wife was a very good massage therapist, and we basically started what was at the time the largest pregnancy massage center in the country. We were seeing sometimes up to 300 pregnant women a week and getting health insurance to pay for it because we found a loophole in the health insurance contract that said they would pay for physical therapy services by a licensed professional. But in New York State, massage therapists are licensed to perform those procedures. So we sold it to the pregnant women as get unlimited massages, pay for your insurance. Their doctors wrote them a prescription because they all had back pain. And then the insurance companies just paid for it. And that was my first multi-million-dollar business.
Nice.
Because yeah. But then there was a dip in the economy. And people don't know this, but insurance companies make most of their money investing the premiums. That's why they're so slow to pay out. They need to keep those premiums in the market or whatever to make money. And there was a huge drop in the stock market, which meant the insurance companies were looking for how can they cut costs. And unfortunately, because we were so unique, we stuck out like a sore thumb. Why is this place seeing all of these pregnant women for physical therapy? Like, more than any, and why are they doing these millions of dollars of whatever? And then they dug into it. And even though we were right legally, they used it as an excuse to say we suspect fraud, so they didn't have to pay us $300,000. So now I'm suddenly out $300,000, and we had just bought a new house. And I started, messing around, actually doing sort of a coaching business. It didn't work so well. And I noticed a number of people saying, why don't you just sell me a booklet? And I started doing research on the internet and saw that there were these booklets being sold that were like about how to make money on the internet, but they all had affiliate programs. And when I saw the ads, I realized, wait a minute, this is somebody just like me who's just promoting this thing that isn't even his.
Hmm.
And then I was like, oh, I just need to do a better ad than this guy, which was true. And I made about $20 million in 7 years.
Wow.
I was taking home about $2 million a year yeah. So um and then and then I'd done a lot of it using certain rules of Google that they changed. So, oh, I can't do this. And then because I knew how to beat the SAT, it was right when Skype was getting more popular. And I saw somebody selling sort of phone coaching on the SAT, and I was like, I'll do Skype coaching.
Hmm.
And that was how I started the College Wizard,
Well,
which is one of the businesses that I still run.
kind of seems like you're a magician. Like
Well, that's why I'm
you just
Harvey
start
Wizard.
so
Yeah,
many, so many
that's right. I pull
things.
it out of my butt. I just pull stuff out of my. Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot about my photography businesses. So later on, because when we had our pregnancy massage business, you have all these pregnant women coming in, right? And we had in the office, we had photos that I had taken of my daughter. And I am a very good photographer. And people were like, wow, wow. So I was like, oh, we are the first photographer that any of these pregnant women are seeing.
Mm.
And they already know us because they're coming to us for pregnancy massage. So that, so then I had a, so then I had a kids photography business that I just built off of the pregnancy massage business. And then, in our, we were catering to very, very wealthy women on the Upper Side of Manhattan. So we had a very wealthy clientele. And because I was doing these baby photos, they started having these lavish parties for their 4-year-olds where they would pay sometimes like 500 for the cake and thousands of dollars for the entertainment for 4-year-olds. But it meant that they were comfortable paying me like $300 to come for 2 hours just to document the party.
Right.
And then and then they're in this big clique. So they start passing me around. Everybody needs Harvey photographing at the party. Right. Oh, that turned into my wedding photography business.
Oh, wow.
That's how I became an award-winning wedding photographer through that business. Um, and and now we have an ad agency, Blue Zone Digital, that um, my business is now, and this is the other thing from an entrepreneur standpoint. Um, and don't be so, and it took me 3 divorces to get here, but we actually get to operate all of our businesses legally tax-free worldwide, no matter how many millions we make. Why is right?
How'd you do
And
that?
it's how do you do that? And one, it's funny. One of the things that I talk about when I say, how do you get to be successful? How do you make money? It's all about
Mm.
paying attention to things that other people don't think about or notice. And so, well, first of all, I had a very bad first divorce. I mean, all those millions basically went to my ex-wife because I felt guilty and
Mm.
I was leaving or after 28 years or whatever. Um, but as a result of that, with my wife here in Costa Rica, we've married um, together for 8 years, married for 6. Um, in Costa Rica, again, this thing you read about in Costa Rica, they only tax territorially. Americans, are used to you pay tax no matter where you are, but Costa Rica is like you only pay tax on money if you're charging Costa Ricans or making it in Costa Rica.
Mhm.
So that means if the money is made outside of Costa Rica, it's tax free. So here's the trick of it. Again, you have to do it, but it's kind of worth it. I don't own anything. The only thing I own in the world is the right to live in my house until I die. I don't own it anymore because I transferred everything that I own to my Costa Rican wife.
Got it.
And she owns it 100%. It has to be, that was my tax lawyer said, because it has to be that if you wake up tomorrow morning and your wife is gone, she could have taken everything. If that's true, then you don't have to pay the taxes. Okay, yeah, it's true. Okay, great. I'll take that. Right. So, and then I find out that in Costa Rica, for instance, teachers make more than $300 a week, the most. So for my tutoring businesses, I'm like, well, why am I hiring Americans
Mhm.
who to get, what would it cost to get like a master teacher with 20 years experience to work full time, teaching my SAT course in the US? And I wanted somebody like with 15 years teaching experience, amazing
Mhm.
personality.
Probably six
What do you
figures.
think? Oh, almost at 50, 60,000, something
Yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah.
To get
At
somebody
least.
really good.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you would have the unemployment insurance and the vacations and the taxes and all that stuff, right?
Hmm.
So in Costa Rica, it turns out that teachers make no more than $300 a week. So I took an ad out. I said, I'll pay 5. I got flooded with responses. You knew you're on the right track when people are saying that my Facebook ad must be a scam because nobody could pay that much money to a teacher in Costa Rica. And then they discover they get paid tax-free because it's the same principle. The money's coming from the US, the money gets transferred in the US into their bank account. So wouldn't you be happier?
Right. Is that why you ended up in Costa Rica? Or
No. Well, I know you've got a G-rated program, so I don't know that I can tell you.
oh, we're not really G-rated, but
Okay. Well, I'll avoid curse words, but this is a good
oh, you
story.
can
We've got
curse.
time.
It's not an issue.
Oh, and I can curse and everything. Oh
Yeah.
my God. All right, so here's how I ended up in Costa Rica because I wasn't even quite, I was like a lot of people think Costa Rica is an island. Americans think Costa Rica is an island sometimes. It's just it's close, but you don't know all that much about it, right?
Right.
And so here's how did I end up in Costa Rica? Well, first I was in Romania. How did I get so and this is like so I appreciate your divorce. Um, after 28 years, and I wasn't happy in my marriage. My daughter was already a junior in college. Um, after 28 years, I and the other problem that only happens if you have too much money. So I'm in our 3-bedroom Manhattan apartment, and my ex-wife is living um in our 4,000 square foot house on the 18-acre estate that I built her $250,000 art gallery on. And she's there living with her art gallery manager. Okay. So again, who, as it turns out, she's living with to this day. So anyway, um, so her marriage wasn't going well, and I'm there stuck in the Manhattan apartment. You know, I'm working my businesses, but nothing to do. And I was depressed, and you'd be depressed too if you're married to someone for 28 years, which you didn't really like that much. And so I think I was on this thing called Lexapro, which is an antidepressant. It has nasty side effects. And it was so strange how this changed the entire trajectory of my life. The one day I went to my doctor and he wasn't there, and it was a substitute doctor. And it wasn't that he made a mistake. It was just, it was strange. It was a substitute doctor who said, why don't we put you on Prozac instead? Maybe that'll be better for you. And I remember saying, well, isn't the same formula? He goes, well, everybody reacts differently. So I go in this Prozac, and this gets to, this allows me to answer the question or to explain how taking the wrong pill led me to marry not one, but 2 Romanian webcam girls. Consecutively, not simultaneously. Wait,
Okay.
I'm
I'm
a
like, you can
Mormon.
do that.
No, I'm not a Mormon. No, it's because, but so the thing is, when they put me on Prozac, all I know is, oh my God, the doctor is right. This feels amazing. I'm like I'm like, I've got so much energy. And turns out, and I didn't really know this until then, until I was 53, I was latently bipolar, which means I was enough bipolar to be bipolar, but not enough to actually know I was, or not enough to be diagnosed. But as it turns out, people who are bipolar and all should never ever take Prozac because it
Good to
gives you a
know.
manic episode if you are. Ooh.
Mm.
And but manic episodes are fun. I mean, that was the first time I got written up in Entrepreneur Magazine. I managed to, there's a problem the building was having and spent all this money on lawyers, and I figured out a way to finesse that and fixed the whole building during this time. I had so much energy, and it also made me a sex maniac. So I discovered livejasmine.com, which is a webcam site. Basically, you go
Mm.
there and there are these, it's mostly either Romanian or Colombian women in their early 20s because they're countries with horrible economies. You can't get a job. Women tend to be beautiful there. And that's in Romania and Colombia, they support all of these webcam things.
Mm.
Which is, it's like a little more exciting than porn, right?
Mm.
And I start doing it and I start having feelings for this webcam girl. I told my ex-wife, And I was like, this is ridiculous. Let's just, kick that guy out of the house. Let's work on her marriage. And she said no. She said no. So that's why I pursued the relationship with the Romanian webcam girl, divorced my wife of 28 years, and moved to Romania. My business were all on the internet, so that wasn't a problem. And then after, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 months, because of the time zone difference between Europe and the US, and since I was working with American students, that meant that when I was in Romania, I would work from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m., which I'm getting to the answer of Costa Rica. I'm almost there.
No, go ahead.
And so we were going to get married like in a year. We were planning the wedding and everything. And the idea was, well, can we go somewhere in a better time zone so you're not up all night? And I'm like, well, where can we go? Meanwhile, my fiance at the time was Romanian. Romanians are not allowed in most countries. It's not like other parts. And if you're in England, Spain, you just can easily go to the US. You don't need a visa. But not Romania because, and it's so interesting when I saw your name. I mean, I don't know what the connotations are. But the reason that Romania has all these problems is because of the gypsies. That the gypsies basically originated in India. They migrated. A lot of them ended up in Romania. And what has happened is that, they tend to be gypsies. I mean, like making money any way they can. A lot of times it's illegal. They do all this bad stuff that countries don't like. They go into other countries and they cause havoc. And even though they're a small percentage, even though they're a small percentage of the population, the easiest thing to do is just make it so you can't get in any country from Romania unless you've got a really good reason. Somebody either has to hire you, or they don't give many tourist visas. You have to, I guess, be a school thing, or because they're trying to keep the gypsies out. And as a result of that, we're thinking, well, what country can we go to? I mean, my first wife wasn't gypsy, although my second one was. But the point is, she's Romanian. She can't get into the US. She can't get into Canada. She can't, like in Bahama, any like the places in America we normally think to go, you can't go. But it turns out Costa Rica, you can get in with the Romanian visa, and it's politically stable, and you can stay for 90 days at a time. You just cross the border to Nicaragua, cross right back, and you can stay another 90 days. Or you can take a plane trip. You just have to leave every 90 days until you're a resident. So I was like, oh, this is cool. So, and then we just went on the internet and I found a long-term apartment in Costa Rica. And that's how I arrived here in 2012, basically, because of my first Romanian webcam girl. And then she decided she wanted to stay and build a house. And so that kind of, kept me here and then we were together for about 2 years. And then I discovered that my wife was having an affair with our mutual dentist. But I didn't discover it until she said she wanted to get a divorce. She just came like, no, I want to get a divorce. And without a lot of explanation, it was because she was the dentist, I guess. And that was how, I have to admit, when we were under stress, I mean, I just gone through this is like my second wife now, cheating on me, it's going badly. And somehow when you're under stress, you go back to what you know. So I went back to that webcam site, and that's how I found my second.
No.
Well, she basically, when the way it works is you see this woman and what lots of other men are seeing her. It's like a chat room, right? And everybody's chatting. And then once you pay the money, then you see her in private. It's like now. It's as if we've been in some big group of Zoom and now we're private on Zoom, right? So now the minute I'm private with her and she sees my face, the first thing she says is, ooh, I want to fuck you in real life. And I wasn't one to, I wasn't one to pass up an opportunity. So there I was back in Romania, and yeah, I've had a cool life. But then eventually, she cheated on me with a taxi driver, and yes,
This
as
is
I
like a
say it,
repeating
my ma-
pattern.
my marriage ended. My marriage ended. It was another 2-year one. The marriage ended 6 months after. Well, no, the marriage ended the day my wife came home with a positive pregnancy test, 6 months after my second vasectomy. And that is true. I had two
Wow.
vasectomies in Romania. Yes, either they said my tubes grew back after the first one, either that, or maybe, just maybe, the Romanian medical system is not all it's cracked up to be. But either way, yes, I did. I guess I'm pretty fixed. I did have two of them. And then she yeah, even though she cheated, she kicked me out of Romania and said that she couldn't bear to see me with another woman. And if I didn't leave, she'd spread lies about me all over the internet and ruin my businesses. And at this point, the only country in the world I could live in was Costa Rica. So that's why I came back. And luckily, everything turned out okay because I met Raquel, the perfect wife.
Nice.
Yeah. And I did it George using the George Costanza technique from Seinfeld.
Not
The one
familiar.
where, well, I'll tell you, what happens is George goes into some office and there's a receptionist that he's attracted to, and he wants to get in with this receptionist, like ask the receptionist out for a date. But I mean, George, he's short, he's bald, he's fat. What chance does he stand? But the one thing he's got going for him is a picture of Jerry Seinfeld's old girlfriend. I don't know why he has it in his wallet, probably, who happened to be very beautiful. And he has this picture in his wallet. The other thing that's true is that his not so beautiful fiance had died 3 months before. And it was actually, I know it's Seinfeld, so everything is, even death is a comedy. The reason she died, that George was so cheap, he he bought the cheapest wedding invitations, and they were so old that the glue was toxic. And so his fiance, on licking all the basically after
Ooh.
licking all the envelopes, was poisoned and died because he bought cheap invitations. So anyway, so that was the situation. So, and he gets in with the woman because the idea is, if if you've been with a beautiful woman, then that's your entry to the beautiful woman club. Like, if you're good enough for her, I guess you're good enough for me. And that's the whole joke of the Seinfeld, that now he gets then he gets to go to these parties with all these beautiful women, and they're all like hanging all over him, and then at the end there's this huge wind, and George's wallet has always been so overpacked that the wind takes up everything up, and he loses the photo. And that's like losing his key and he's shut out forever from the Beautiful Woman Club. But my gypsy wife was rather attractive, and I had this photo of her with me on a yacht in the Mediterranean. And I used that photo in my ad. And part of it was I carefully placed my ad. You won't believe what I did. I took an ad out in the exclusive Craigslist Costa Rica personals.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're used almost exclusively by really, really, really creepy guys. And I figured I'd stick out like a sore thumb, but in a good way. And I kind of did. And she she was messing around because she was actually looking for a job in the other section of Craigslist. And for fun, she was like, let's look at all these creepy guys in that personal section. And then she sees me. She's like, what the hell is wrong with him? He's good looking. he he's standing next to this beautiful woman who's divorcing him on this yacht in the Mediterranean. So she sent me a one-line email. What the hell is wrong with you? And
Aw.
that was that was uh that was a match made in comedy heaven. And we've been together ever since. That's like almost 8 years ago. Yeah. And I have to my wife is gorgeous. And she also got me in the BW30 club. Do you know about that?
Is that
BW30?
no?
It's a special club for men who are banging women 30 years younger than them. But it's
Oh,
hard,
wow.
but it's hard to get in because you need legal proof, right?
Mm.
And but once I married her, it was easy for me, but all I can think of is poor, Vladimir Putin and Mick Jagger, because if you don't, you need the legal proof, right? And if you haven't married her, it can be hard getting that needed notarized letter saying you're banging um, from a woman you're banging in a cheap hotel room. It's a little more difficult than just showing the marriage license. So I don't know how they pulled that off, but then again, Putin's a dictator, so he can't see. Does what he wants. But yeah, so so that's why I'm in Costa Rica.
You've had a lot of unconventional ways of finding a wife. Uh,
Yes, yes, I have. I didn't even
um,
talk about the fact that my first wife I met entirely from that's how I figured out the advertising approach. I did an advertising campaign as well and was married 6 weeks later. So pretty cool, right? Uh, yeah. Um, yes.
being through all of these marriages and divorces,
Yes.
what have you learned from all of that? I'm sure there's a lot of lessons.
Yeah, sure. Um, I did a lot that, well, basically I married my mother 3 times.
Mm,
That was my mistake. Because, um, because of my mother, I cannot I really could not be with a woman unless she was super passionate about criticizing and humiliating me, just like my mom. And no, I'm just telling you the God honest truth,
yeah,
things that you
that's
don't
good.
realize till years later. And the other thing that was really, and this is an interesting thing, this is a lesson for everybody about how your assumptions and beliefs can screw up your life.
Mm,
So even though I was always making tons of money, I never liked it. It was never my idea because I'm really kind of a minimalistic person. And that's what's so great about here in Costa Rica. I mean, I built a 2,000 square foot house. Like my dream house. I didn't want to, I had much bigger houses with, ex-wife number one. But this is all I need. And my wife now is very happy with it. She's a frugal person. That was the point. That I was raised frugally, I was frugal, and somehow I had this belief that part of the deal is you have your choices in life. You can either be lonely and live by yourself and make tons of money, or you can have a wife, a partner, a spouse. And the deal is, in return for that companionship and not being lonely, she's going to spend all your money, which, which happened very predictably with ex-wives number one, two, and three.
mm,
Yeah. Um, and, you know, it was interesting. And part of it was luck, I think, that when I met Raquel, we've been together for about a couple months, and versus the others who, oh my God, who I when she wanted a new car, or she bought the car, then she didn't like it, then we had to buy another car because she was too bored of it. I mean, this crazy stuff with money. I mean, the wedding to ex-wife number two that she promised when we met because we were in Romania. She was like, "We can have a beautiful wedding for $7,000." I was like, "Oh, that's pretty good." Then in the end, all we had to add was another 30,000 to that. You see, so it was very amazing. I mean, in Romania, it was like the wedding you would have paid $250,000 for in the U.S. Um, but then with Raquel, we've been together for a couple months, and like I don't even see what I want to buy her a gift. But I don't even know what she would like because she wears very simple clothes, wears no jewelry, doesn't really wear makeup. Um, I don't know what else do women like, right? But nothing obvious. And I said, I really want to get you something nice, but I don't even know what would be, what would make a difference in your life? What would make you really happy? And she said, well, I read so much and I'm dealing with this old computer. If I could just have a computer with like a screen so I can read more easily, that would be perfect.
Mhm.
And that one, see, it's so interesting how single incidents in your relationships with people sometimes define the entire relationship.
Mm. Yeah.
Because fundamentally, or at least for me, that because I'm frugal, because I mean, I like experiences, I like to travel, but I'm not into buying cars, I'm not into, buying big houses, watches or anything like that. I'm like so happy with this watch because it's a solar powered watch, cost me $250, and unless I break it, I will just have this one simple watch forever. So yeah, actually a lot of things I do is minimalistic. My clothes, my closet is just filled with these clothes. The- This is because I'm very small. I'm only 5'3". And so it's very hard to get clothes that fit. But the one thing that fits me are these extra small polo shirts from H&M. So I buy them 2 dozen at a time. I still have to get them shortened on the bottom. And then that's my closet. And then I have these black sweatpants and um and gray sandals. And and it fits because if it's sort of like how a wizard would dress anyway. So it's all on brand. Um yeah, I call my style. I don't know if you'll get the joke. Jack LaLanne 1961.
No.
Yeah. If you look him up on the internet, you'll get the joke. Um, Jack LaLanne, and the point is that he was a very famous like exercise coach, and he used to do exercise. He would like this morning show in the U.S. in the 70s. Where Jack LaLanne, teaching, and then there was a Jack LaLanne, all of the gyms that he built. But anyway, uh, that he always wore would look like, it's very cut to the body, almost like a jumpsuit, a black jumpsuit, you
Mm,
know?
gotcha.
So I was like, oh, okay, I'll just look like Jack LaLanne. But the point about Raquel was when I was like, oh my God, if I knew that there were women who would feel about money in a way similar to me, I never would have married those people. So it's,
Sometimes
yeah,
I was gonna say sometimes if you don't like your first couple of marriages seem like it's a pattern that kind of repeated. Like you said, you married your mother. I feel like if you don't learn the lesson, then you keep running into the same pattern until you learn the lesson. And
that's
yes, you
absolutely
did now.
true.
So now you found something that's better fitting for you.
Yeah. And and I mean I didn't mention my book, which anybody can go to harveywizard.com and you can get it for $1. It's coming out on my 65th birthday next month on March 4th. I'll be 65. And the name of the book is 65-Year-Old Badass: 21 Unconventional Secrets for a Life of Wealth, Health, and Adventure. It is a how-to tell-all memoir. All of my crazy adventures, all the money that I've made, right? All the divorces that I've had, all the felonies I've committed and gotten away with. It's all in the book, as well as some scandalous stuff. Yeah. I tell other people's secrets. Ooh.
Gotcha. You said it's already out, or where
It's
can
going to be out
people
on
find
it's
that?
going to be out on March 4th. And what I'm doing, if anybody goes to the harveywizard.com, goes to my website, there's a button. You just get on the list, and then on March 4th, I'll send you a link and you can buy it for only $1.
Gotcha.
Uh, and then we'll see
You
what it sells
mentioned a
for after
couple
that.
of times that you're in your 60s. but
Yeah,
you
I'm gonna be
look like
65 in
you're
March.
probably in your 40s.
That's
Like,
exactly right. It's all by
right.
design. Well, this is, and this is where, this is how you never know how your life is gonna turn out. Because if I showed you a picture from me in 2004, you would think I looked older,
Mm,
and that's 20 years ago. And part of it, it's funny, you know, as much as I lost in those marriages to the Iranian webcam girls, the interesting thing is, so now suddenly I'm with these very young women, 30 years, and Romania as a culture is very image conscious. So these wives wanted me to look as good as I could so as not to make them look bad.
mm,
Right. So the first one, I mean, it was just one day. I normally didn't, I would normally shave every day. And we went on some trip and I didn't shave for a couple of days. She was like, "Oh, I think you'd look good with a little beard like that." It's like, "Oh, okay,
mm.
I'll do that." And then my clothes were kind of crappy from my first marriage. Well, basically, my first wife bought clothes that made me look very gay. Everything with flowers and paisleys. So in Romania, they're like, no, you can't wear that. You have to look like a man. It's like changing my wardrobe. And and then turns out in Romania, you can get a hair transplant for only $4,000 from 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 Dr. Felix, transplant doctor to the stars.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's what it is. It's a $4,000 hair transplant. I mean, it's my real hair. So it goes way up like that. And that's part of why I pull it up. It's kind of like I'm just so happy that that I've got hair there. It's like somebody who gets a boob job and is always wearing, uh, skimpy outfits to show it off. So I just grow it long in front now that I have it. Um, and between that, so the beard, the hair, and then the 90 days that I was exiled in Bulgaria fixed my body.
Mm. You had some adventures.
Well, of course, that's an adventures. The book is full of
Yeah.
adventures. So the way that my whole life I would go to the gym, but I wouldn't do it right. I would kind of go through one machine to another and another, for 30 minutes. And so I'm with crazy ex-wife. We weren't married yet. We were supposedly engaged. She hadn't, she was like putting off the wedding, but the problem was that I was overstaying my visa in Romania. And I didn't think I'd get caught because you can't be there for more than 90 days in any 6-month period, but I'd been like 3 days here and 6 days that, it's like, and even the people at the immigration said, "Oh, you'll be fine. No one's going to sit there and with a calculator and add up all your days. Nobody has time for that." Don't you know that on the way out of Romania for a trip to London, it was 6 in the morning. There was nobody online going out on
Mm.
immigration.
Wow.
And the guy pulls out a calculator. And by the time he's done, I've overstayed my visa and I can't come back to Romania for 90 days. But at this point, like we're living together. I've got all my stuff in Romania. I'm teaching in Romania. Um, and on the way I'm being kicked out on the way out to London.
Mm.
So like, what am I going to do? I'm like, okay, Bulgaria is the next country over from Romania, and it's really cheap. So I rented an Airbnb in Romania for 90 days. And it was in the winter, the Bulgarian winter. Got there like toward the end of January, and the only thing I had was a gym 10 minutes away, which because Bulgaria is so cheap, $50 a month got you gym membership plus unlimited personal training. So that was how I met Vlad. And for 90, pretty much 90 days every day, I worked out with Vlad and formed the habit that I maintain 8 years later. I got the body, I got the face, I got the um yeah. So I basically completely reinvented myself at around 60.
When you're traveling, do you like, are there things that you see in other countries that you're like, oh, we need to, I wish we had that in the US in terms of laws and how things are structured and government wise that you feel like are things that we can incorporate into our current paradigm to make
Well,
it better.
well, the problem, the problem is fundamentally cultural.
Mm,
So there's a number of things. Um, I say, things that make it better, whatever. Uh, Americans are culturally very, very individualistic, and with lives geared around work and money.
yep.
That's what America is, right? And buying as much stuff, that kind of thing. So it's a couple things that are, things that are different or interesting. So, um, and that's one of the things that I discovered. Again, I explained how I came to Costa Rica kind of, just by luck, really. But the Costa Rican um, culture is very, very family oriented. And again, by being married, to a Costa Rican, of course, I understand exactly how all this works. And so here's an interesting thing, because there are a lot of gringos here in Costa Rica, and they make they make ass of themselves in different ways. But a classic one would be, okay, you're gonna have a party
Mm,
and you'd like your lawn mowed before the party, right? And it's like a Thursday. Oh, let me get the guy to come, mow the lawn on Saturday for my party on Sunday. You call him up and he goes, I'm sorry, I can't because I'm going to, and it's like my sister-in-law's cousin's birthday party or something. Like, in other words, that family, it's like that.
yeah.
I met another gringo who had married a Tika woman, and that was his deal. Every Sunday was some family thing. Because they
Mm,
create things, which is nice, to keep and it's about family and spending time with your kids. So the point is that if you say to the guy, you want him to mow the lawn on Saturday, and he was like, I'm going to this birthday party thing, and then you pull the American trick of I'll pay you double,
mm,
they will most likely be offended and never talk to you or work for you again. Interesting, isn't it?
yeah.
So that's a huge cultural difference. One of the things I also really like culturally about Costa Rica is they try to make it so poor people can at least survive and live. What do I mean by that?
Yeah.
There's no property taxes in Costa Rica.
Mm,
So unless you build something crazy, I think if you buy and again for Costa Rica, crazy is like over 300,000 on your house. you
mm,
know? So pay 90,000 for my house, no property taxes. Isn't that amazing? Now, why is it important? Do you know how many Americans? I mean, now people can't even buy houses. It's gotten worse. But the classic thing was you buy your house, you pay it off after 30 years, then you retire, and you can no longer live in your house in your, Connecticut, wherever it is, because the property taxes are so high, your Social Security won't cover it. So you end up selling the house that you would have loved to live in and move to Florida where it's cheaper and and you don't have to have those property taxes. They also um they also restrict the prices on what they consider staples, rice, beans, vegetables, things like that, so that even if you're poor, you should be able to have a place to live, feed your family, and be mobile because there's an extensive bus system that's very, very cheap. You can go like across the country for $2. And then they do charge high taxes on what they consider luxury items. Like car is considered a luxury item. There's a 50% tax on cars. But let's talk about this as an American. And this is why, and people complain about this, in Costa Rica all the time. I'm like, okay, I'm not paying any income tax here. I'm not paying any sales tax. I own my house outright. Um, and oh, okay. So the $17,000 car that I would have bought in the US cost me 24,000 new. It's a Hyundai, but it's like a Venue. It's kind of a small SUV. Um, but so the way I look at it, it's I think it's somewhat more equitable. So if you're poor, you at least are not, you're at least going to be able to live and hopefully, have not be worried about money every second.
Yeah.
And then for the people who have a little more money, they just pay more taxes. It's funny, like what's considered luxury? Head and Shoulders shampoo. Okay. So because anything that has to be kind of imported, then it
Right.
gets the tax. So you could pay, like $10 for a Head and Shoulders shampoo, then maybe like, I don't know, $4 in a Dwayne Reed in the US. So you have that. But like I said, if you look at the whole society, that feels more equitable to me. And a lot of it is just, more of a focus on spending time with family, not working like a maniac, um, and not being overly concerned for the most part about amassing money and buying stuff. So that's definitely true here. What other things do I like? I like when you go through Europe, especially like I spent Christmas in Vienna, and I really, really like Vienna. And interesting, my wife feels very comfortable there, and this is something that I'm learning by being married to a light brown person, you know, um, that that actually my wife feels very uncomfortable in the Czech Republic. We stayed in Prague for a lot, but because of something I don't think about, it's like if you walk around and everybody is white, pretty much except for you, it starts feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, so it's that has been it's been very revealing for me, being married to someone who's brown. Um, and and it's funny, in Costa Rica, there is a prejudice depending on how light or dark you are. And that depends because Costa Ricans are generally a combination of Spaniards,
Mhm.
European Spaniards, and indigenous people.
Yeah.
So, for instance, when I describe my wife, she's basically Pocahontas with smaller boobs. That's because she's like gorgeous. But because she kind of, because she has that indigenous look because she's
Right.
largely indigenous. But it's saying so if she goes to a place like Prague, well, first of all, that was interesting in the airport because we've traveled a lot. We've been all over Europe, all over the world. I guess, in the 5 years or whatever, she's been she has been randomly taken out of the line at the TSA about 6 or 7 times. Me zero. Funny,
Wow.
isn't it? But no, I mean, and then and things that I see there, the idea of when I can, as I call it, sharing my American privilege. What do I mean by that? Well, we were, I guess we were, I forget which country we were going into. Maybe it was Germany. I don't know. Um, anyway, we're getting off, and it was still like to the tail end of the pandemic, and there had been a problem because in Costa Rica, somebody had hacked the health system. And so the proof that you had your vaccines it was supposed to be just be able to call it up on your phone, and now you couldn't. And
Mm.
some people had like card backups, some didn't. Anyway, we're going to immigration, and we see in front of us, we think, oh, this is going to be bad. There's 6 Costa Ricans in a group, and they're basically getting pulled through the mill, to get because of their the COVID card, and this one has this and doesn't, and like, and you're just watching it, it's going on. They're there like 20 minutes, and it's agonizing, and then we go to line. Guy sees my passport. Now hers doesn't matter. Stamp, stamp. Oh, come on, spend some money here. So
Yeah,
so
that's
that's
like most countries when they see that American passport, it's a little different.
yeah. So that versus the US. And the other things that I like about Europe is that they actually value culture in the sense that the the country is making a a commitment by the money that, all the European countries, they have like um a a minister of culture. Just overall, the interesting thing is you go into Vienna, you see bookstores, like sometimes specialty, but in the end, Europeans tend, again, this is generalization, big generalization, right?
Yeah.
But they tend to be more cultured and they tend to read more and they tend they actually tend to be more intellectual.
I feel like the government, especially in the Scandinavian countries, I feel like the government cares about the people a little bit more. And it's not just even for little things like when I was in Sweden, they have like parks every mile, I think 1 to 5 miles or something, just because they want people to work out more. Some fast foods are not allowed. Some ingredients are not allowed in food.
Right,
Healthcare
right,
is cheaper. College is much cheaper, unlike here. So
right.
this,
Or cheaper for, yeah, it's it's sort of the problem you have when you create a culture that's all about materialism and money.
yeah,
And that's what you get, right? Because how do they get those things? Because people are willing to pay more taxes to have them.
yeah.
And they see it that way. They would rather have, it's almost like a mindset, let's have a nice life for everybody, as opposed to let me have the freedom to make as much money as I want and buy all the stuff I want, which is kind of right. There's
Yeah,
enough Americans who think that way that stop taxes to be raised for things like nice things.
yeah. And
Right?
maybe
It's
if we
a different mindset.
we spent less on the defense, defending the country from um just allocating properly what um
Well,
yeah.
since I'm running for president, I have to when relative to the defense thing, what I'm going to say is that, I mean, first of all, obviously tons of money is wasted, you know, uh in defense spending. We know that the amount of corruption that's going to go on there. The one thing that, and my biggest problem with Trump is separate from his personal problem. I mean, just being a cheater, liar, a grifter, rapist. Between all that, the the problem I have is that, see, I would rather see problems as complex and look for simple solutions than oversimplify problems, which makes you come up with the wrong solution. And a lot of what he's doing is keying in to, we know his base is largely undereducated people, right? People who haven't been to college, right? So for people who don't have a lot of sophistication, who don't have a lot of education, saying things like, "Oh, if one of those European countries doesn't give enough money to NATO, just tell Russia to take them out." And people go, "Yeah, let's go," right? But it's such an oversimplification. Even, the idea that, oh, just not spend the money, because it is a responsibility of the US because of how rich we are. And it's not, and the truth is, it isn't as though we could just pull back in, stop giving people all this money, and we'd be fine, because the world is so interconnected. So it's a much more it's got to be a much more complex solution. The one thing, when I talk about it could take me 12 years to be president, and why that is actually important, is that if we stay in a system where whoever has the most money wins, or largely wins, then that puts the whole country, or keeps it imprisoned by the desires of the corporation.
Mhm.
Because if you've gotten into your political position by getting the money from these people, obviously you got to give them something back. They paid you the money. And yeah, there are situations where you don't, but fundamentally you do. And that's why nothing is going to change. We don't even have the options because we don't know what would be possible or what politicians could come up with if they weren't beholden to large corporate donors in order to keep them in power.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, well, if again, it's the idea that it's like anything, that anything goes viral, right? I'm like,
Mhm.
if I go viral at some point, if this idea goes viral, we're all connected, right? So the people see me, it doesn't take much to get on my email list. It doesn't even cost any money, right? To get on my email list
Mhm.
if somebody sees me on a podcast or something. So done done with enough persistence, it could actually change the nature of the American political system and the degree to which money controls it that in turn limits what actually can happen or the laws that actually can change because too many people are invested in keeping it the same.
Mm.
Corporations, not people.
You felt like you mentioned you feel like we have to spend on defense and on other countries.
Right.
Do you feel
Because what
like that's our
go ahead.
responsibility as a
It's
country
not,
to?
it's not so much, it's not that's it's not seeing it that it is in one level.
Mm.
What I'm saying is it's like other situations where if you're the richest, if you've got the biggest house on the block,
Mm.
right? Or you own half the block and there's a problem on the block, it's kind of like you're probably the one who should put in the most money for the thing, right? I mean, I'm just saying, look at other situations, but beyond the altruistic thing is the fact that American interests are worldwide. I mean, think about this, should we give money to Ukraine or whatever? That if if when Russia taking over Ukraine, they're taking over their grain, then they're you see everything impacts everything else.
Mm.
So it's a matter of the US needing to actually invest to keep other parts of the world safe because if you don't, it's going to come back and bite you. Like it shouldn't be that way, but it'll come back and bite you. I'm going to give a real simple solution because this is why we have to pay money for defense. And I'm not saying all of the money for defense, but just as a concept, right? That
Yeah.
if we let our allies get attacked, if we let things get out of hand, so much of the money that we're spending, and again, the kids, I agree that a lot of it's probably spent wrong, but what it's aimed for is to kind of keep things cool in places where there are American interests. What people forget is that, when ships are being bombed on the Red Sea, then that actually turns into stuff that isn't getting
Mm.
into stores in the US. That's the simple one,
Yeah.
right? Why should we pay on defense? Well, because of that, right? And then, or if the idea that, well, if we don't support this country, then something bad will happen to them, which will ultimately happen to us. I don't know why I think of this story. I mentioned I used to, do this. I used to be a street musician. And the one problem we would have sometimes is we would get there in the morning and there were two homeless guys who liked to sleep like right where we would play.
Mhm.
And they were, severe alcoholics and everything. And they're probably no longer alive. I'm thinking this is so many years ago now. Um, and we were friendly with them. We kid around about them. But what would happen is they would start, somehow they would get some alcohol. And then when we were singing and for people to give us money, they would start kind of dancing along the lines and scaring the people online. And we'd stop making money because people like, they feel nervous, right? So we got into the habit. We would come there in the beginning of the morning and we would give them $10 and tell them go get, because it's on cheap wine or whatever, go get as drunk as you want, but we'll keep giving you the money, but you can't do it here. You gotta go 5 blocks away. And my point here is that life is complex and it's not always the best possible solution. I will tell you that I had this whole plan of how it was gonna come to our apartment. He was gonna clean up. I was gonna buy him clothes. I was gonna make a resume. I was gonna say that he'd work for us. I was gonna get him a job. All of this, which not, it's like I can make him do stuff like that, but that's what he wanted to do. So as a problem solution, it kind of wound up being the best solution because these guys are going to drink and kill themselves anyway, right? And if I don't pay them off to drink someplace else, then I'm losing my income.
Yeah.
So that's what I point to when it comes to American military. It's just we're too interrelated. They're both the people we need as customers for what we sell, the people that we need for various other reasons. And if because we are, as powerful as we are, it, like I said, it's not a matter of is it fair, is it, what I'm saying? It's like it's like a parent with their kid. If you got a sick kid and there's some problem, in many cases you wind up supplementing because you don't have
Yeah.
to,
I just
right?
have an issue with sometimes
Okay,
they
so
kind of fund both sides, or money gets used to kind of influence outcomes, which I guess is the point. But uh, sometimes it's not like you said, America is very different culturally than other countries, and
mhm.
we're using money and our power to kind of influence other other countries for most of the time for our own benefits. I know we want, world peace and all of that. But sometimes it's more of seen as things are used for our benefit versus for the benefit of the country or bringing peace or anything like that.
Right,
Sometimes a
and
lot of money gets thrown into all of these
mhm.
wars that we've had for a really long time, even though there's all this money being poured in.
Right. No, what the only point I was making is that it's not as simplistic as like, oh, just don't do it.
Yeah,
And that's what I was saying that the problems are complex. We want simpler solutions to the problems and admitting just how complex they are, you
yeah,
know. Because there's a certain element, see, and the reason that Trump appeals, right? The reason that Trump appeals is that nobody likes it to be taken advantage of. And so he's keying into getting Americans feeling like everybody's taking advantage of them, in order in order in order to get votes. But it isn't it's not always true. I mean, there's some times where if you're dealing with someone like Putin, I mean, we know that the CIA does stuff, but so does everybody else. And it's one of those things where, and I am a badass because if people are if people are coming at you with guns, you can't always just um talk them away or make everything nice. There are points at which people do things and they require responses that the average American would probably be upset about. And there's a certain level at which that's how we all want it. We don't really want, and part of what government does is that it interfaces and takes care of the stuff that you as an individual don't want to have to be dealing with. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you want to be,
yeah,
do you want to be helping down at the southern border, right? Um, right? That doesn't sound like fun. Um, like I don't want to go down there and have to deal with that, but the government deals with that for us, right?
yeah,
And when and these other things that we don't even know about where the government is maybe pushing one party or even the thing that goes on in the Middle East. We know that Iran is is it right? So Iran is funding all of their proxies.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, we have to then fund our proxies because that's that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of things that annoy us and we just have to deal with. And I think government is in the end the same thing in many ways. But in terms of the amount and the money and the and the fact that there's lots of companies that make money whenever we go to war. So of course they're going to be contributing to the political process. And that's why if you were to take that corporate money out, then you could start having you could do a lot of things that would probably make people happier because then the people see isn't that what the whole problem is that we say we're a democracy, but fundamentally the we're not making the decisions. The ones who are making the decisions in the end are largely the corporations
Yeah.
because they're applying financial pressure on the politicians. So that politicians are and because what the politicians know is that if I get enough money, I'll be able to run enough ads essentially to convince all those stupid Americans of anything. I mean, I'm sure that they're thinking that,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like I'll just work, my job as a politician is just get the money from the politicians and then do pretty much what they want, and then I get to stay in power. But it's no longer a democracy because those decisions aren't made. Again, that's the problem. We elected a representative to, to support you or whatever, but that representative is being paid. His campaign is basically being paid. His whole political future is paid by this guy over here. So who are you going to listen to if you're a politician? So unless, and it's again, unless we have enough people who um who get together, there's people can demand change when people get so upset that they demonstrate or they write all their comments or that kind of thing. If something uh inspires Americans to get together behind an issue like that, yes, they can make change, but it just doesn't happen that often. And meanwhile, the corporations are always there with,
Yeah.
with money for politicians will do roughly what they want.
Well, Harvey, that was really great conversation. Before we get ready to close it out,
Sure,
is there anything you want to leave the guests with, where they can find you, any services you offer?
sure. All you have to remember is harveywizard.com. Or even if you just Google Harvey Wizard, you'll find me all over the place. Um, my email is right there. So whether it's somebody who's looking for a scholarship, uh, here's how the scholarship works. If you just get a high enough SAT score, you well, first of all, places like Florida, they guarantee you there's a thing called the Bright Future Scholarships. There are lots of scholarships that depend on SAT. And because I have beaten the SAT, I have these 54 simple rules that if you follow them, you're guaranteed your 1530. It takes about a year. But in other words, 30, think about this. Wouldn't you want your kid, or wouldn't you demand that your kid put in, we're talking about 30 minutes a day for a year, plus extra reading. And that's about what it takes to get a 1530 on an SAT, which if you have it, you suddenly can go to college for free or close to free. And it's all the problem that I have is that the SAT tutoring industry doesn't really work. And so if you want to find out how to get your scholarships, go to harveywizard.com for that. And if you're looking to make extra money, I will hire anybody
Hmm.
to to be part of the Wizard organization. It can be as simple as putting a link on your own Instagram page or at the bottom of your emails or something and make money that way. Um, and I'm training people to be AI business specialists where they actually can work for the Wizard organization from home, enhancing our social media presence. So just hit me up, job, scholarship, or if you want to have fun, go to papiazukar.net.
What
That's
is that?
my that is my stand-up that is my stand-up comedy alter ego. We didn't talk about that. I also have the only English language comedy club in my backyard.
Wow.
It's called Lugar de Papi Azucar because again, for 25 grand, I've got I've got an outdoor uh for 30 expands up to 150 people, and that's where I do concerts. Um I do my comedy when I'm here, and I also do masterminds. Like if people are, really want to build that business finally, or whatever it is that somebody is looking for to take themselves to the next level, I have programs for just about everybody and anything in terms of making your life better. HarveyWizard.com. All right, end of commercials.
Awesome. And for the listeners, all of the stuff you mentioned, his links will be in the description. And as always, you can find us on all podcast platform or americangypsy.com, and all the links will be in the description. Thank you, Harvey, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.